tell you about the Nemati family, Ismail and Borunullah Nemati. You know, when a family sends their first students through university, it can be a really, really big deal. And this family had two sons, even though they didn't have big bribe money to pay, going to university. It was a very, very big deal. It was the first night of Ramadan. First night of Ramadan, families get together. You don't miss getting together with your family. If there's any possibility, you can do so. The two sons had come back home for the first night of Ramadan to be received by their family. What they couldn't know was that the previous night, two men had knocked on the door. And it appeared that those two men might have been part of the Taliban fighting group. And maybe those two men appeared on somebody's screen in Creech Air Force Base or at Hancock Field. But clearly, movements were being tracked. And so when the Nemati brothers came home, they then became the subject of a nightmare because there was doubt, there was suspicion. Who are these two men who've just come back to the house after two fighters had gone to the same house the night before? Wahidullah, age 13, had gone to be with his brothers as they fell asleep over their books getting ready for their exams. He thought that when the U.S. soldiers entered, they were trying to wake his brothers up. And he was so proud of his older brother Ismail, who spoke some English. So Ismail was trying to say, we are students in English. But to no avail. Ismail was dragged out of the room. He was shot outside of the room. The other two brothers were shot inside the room. There were three huge puddles of blood. And on the other end of the complex, their other brother, Faribullah, had a bag over his head as an Afghan interpreter walloped him on one side of the head and then the other and said, tell me where the guns are, tell me where the guns are. And finally, Faribullah, not knowing what had happened to his own brothers, said, believe me, if you find any guns, you come and shoot me with them. And so the village, the next day, realizing that two of the village sons had been killed, realizing that a third had been so traumatized, were up in arms. They were very, very, very angry. And so when we carry the sign that says drones create enemies and decrease security, it isn't that there are these marauding people who can't wait to harm us, but that people have experienced loss and grief and bewilderment. Why? Why, if you know so much? I mean, I don't think most average Afghan people even know that according to a RAND study, it would take 100,000 researchers to pore over the equivalent of 58,000 full-length feature films just assessing what the drones have collected in terms of aerial camera-acquired information over Afghanistan. I don't think most people in Afghanistan understand that people are working full-time with pensions and benefits to try to establish patterns of life. There are 50 to 70,000 Air Force employees trying to better understand patterns of life in Afghanistan. And so we need to assert, if you want to understand patterns of life in Afghanistan, we'll pop for a plane ticket for any Air Force employee and come and try to listen, to learn from, to dwell with people who've meant us no harm, and then better understand why there are feelings of antagonism and rage even. And then to seek forgiveness. So these are things that we think about as we walk along. We know that we're forming a community in solidarity with many, many, many people in the UK, as Maya has helped us understand, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, and all across the United States. And it's an exciting time in a way because who knows what may be occasioned in terms of people beginning to wonder, to puzzle over what surveillance means when they feel uncomfortable even in our own country with methods of surveillance.